anyway, housing stats, Tego. You have more stats
Well,
for us?
I just wanted to bring up one thing. There was a story in the Albuquerque Business First this week and I think, what was the headline? Something along the lines of investors, what was it? Housing market investors bought fewer homes
Albuquerque
in
homes.
fewer Albuquerque homes in Q1 of 2022, and I'm like, you know how you see a headline, you go, okay, that doesn't sound right. It just doesn't sound right.
Well, first thing I think of is how many investors were there that they're comparing it to, because we've never been like this huge market for VC companies to come in and buy 1,000 houses, right?
Well, if you're somebody like me that sees stuff in the news and realizes that a lot of it is just hyperbole, and you don't like it, well, here you go. So the thing that was interesting is they said that this stat said, and it was from Atom Research. It does good research on housing. They say that the number of investors was down 40% from Q1 2021 to Q1 2022. And I was like, oh, great. Okay, well, how many is that? So all they did is give a percentage. Well, what good is that?
Because again, it could be 1 to 2, 2 to 1, right?
Right. It's like if you give me a stat and you don't give me the number, or you give me the numbers, you don't give me the percentage, or you give me the percentage and you don't give me the numbers. What good is it?
If you give me the numbers, I can do the percent. But if you don't give me the numbers, I can't decide if it's a relevant fact or not, right?
Right. So 40% down. So
and that's ironic, isn't it? Because we feel like most of the investors in our market are mom and pop or small investors, right?
Right.
It's people who have a few rental properties, right? They had their house and they bought a new one and kept the one their first home as a rental house or
So
something.
that's a really, really good distinction between you and I. You went by feel. You know what I did? I went and looked at the data.
That's the difference between us.
So this is what I did. So there's some pretty prominent stories that are floating around out there. You know how stories get out there, and there's a story that says 33% of all homes are owned by or bought by investors in the United States. And I'm like going, just the whole gut check. You're going, okay, that's not Albuquerque.
You think 1 in 3 houses is owned by an investor is what that stat says.
That's what that says. And I hear people quoting it locally, and I'm like going, it doesn't pass the smell test. So anyway, I dug into it, and this is what I found, is that in 2022, about 8.5% of homes were purchased as corporate buyers, okay? And so what corporate means is that somebody... I'm going to wrap this all up here in a second, but that means that that's somebody that has incorporated or LLC or actually even trust in the name of the buyer, right?
And a lot of people buy in a trust. So
Correct.
Yeah.
And then there's this big conversation about the institutional buyers, right? So these are the big venture capital backed, Wall Street backed companies that are coming and buying up all the homes, right? We see those stories nationally. And so I dug into it even further, and I found that only about 2% of all the homes purchased so far in 2022 were bought by institutional buyers. Again, and these are venture capital
in our market.
In our market. And the thing that's interesting is one of them is America Homes for Rent. The other one is Home Partners of America, and then there's another one that's Breckenridge Properties, right? So those are the 3 big that are in our market. And a lot of people don't know this. So if you're a realtor, you just learned something you probably had no idea.
America Homes for Rent came in, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago and bought 200 houses and they bought them all at $200,000 or under roughly. So they still own them and they rented them.
So this is the one of the pushbacks I have on people that say, oh, these Wall Street people are coming in and taking all the homes and driving up prices. Well, first off, 2% of all purchases is not driving up prices. Second off, it's not like they're buying those homes and then just putting them on the shelf. They're turning them into rentals, and they're bringing housing into the market as a rental as opposed to a purchase. So either way, it's coming into the market. Now, you may not like it. You may not like the idea of somebody, taking that money and moving it out of state. But again, of those all those purchases that were institutional was only 2%, that means the rest of them were small mom and pop, we'll call them a mom and pop, local real estate investors that are buying property.